Back to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm your host, Aaron Cooney, episode 148 of the Pioneer Sideline coming out to you right now. And we're going to jump right into things here. Matt Desmond has joined us to talk about soccer, and really good week here for this both Pioneer soccer teams. Point Park men's soccer getting things off started. They both took a trip up to Salem International, and the men's team in that the second game of that evening could not get the win there. They fall 3-0 to Salem International back on Friday the 5th. Point Park evens out their record at 5-5. Still undefeated in the KIAC, though. A pretty solid Salem International team that they lost to there with a record of 5-3. Matt, taking a look at the standings, and Point Park only 3 shots on goal. Had some difficulty there on that trip.
Yeah, I mean, you really look at that game, you pinpoint the shots on goal, and Point Park wasn't having their day on offense. As we said, only 3 shots on goal, 11 shots total in that contest. You look at their opponent, the Salem International, they had 15 shots, and then 8 of those shots were on goal. So that's the success rate you have to look at. If you're going to get the shots on goal, you're going to get the victory at the end of that game. And Point Park wasn't able to generate any offense, and that's what typically led to the loss.
If you want offense, take a look at this next game. Point Park exploding out of the gate here just the next day. This is 24 hours after their match, less than 24 hours actually, after the match with Salem International, taking on Cincinnati Christian, who came in for a visit. Point Park 9-1, just goals from all over the place here. Point Park still undefeated in the KIAC, 6-5 and 4-0 in the conference. That's Saturday. Matt, I mean, a completely different team just under 24 hours later here in Point Park.
Well, yeah, I mean, something you got to focus on here with the Point Park Pioneers is they're very good within the KIAC, but once you go outside of that, they have some trouble. They won this contest very easily against the bottom feeder in the KIAC in Cincinnati Christian. They won that 9-1. But I want to focus on the non-conference schedule, because as this season kind of develops on later in this season, they're going to have to start getting those non-conference victories, and it's something to add to the resume, because once it comes time for the postseason, they want to prove they can win outside the KIAC.
Matt, and you mentioned non-conference play. Well, they're done with conference play. Point Park is finished out. They swept their conference 4-0, so they won't be playing any more teams in the conference. So you're right. They really do got to step it up here out of conference. That's really their remaining schedule here. Let's take a look at the standings for the KIAC in men's soccer. Point Park up on top, as you can see, with a perfect 4-0 record, 6-5 overall, and then pretty much drops off from there. Kind of uneven when you look through in the teams. No one really above 500 there, aside from Point Park, Matt. But Point Park, I mean, you take away some of those conference wins, and they're below 500 too.
Yeah, you really got to stress the out of conference is going to be very crucial for this Point Park team, because you also are forgetting to add in Talladega, Alabama into the picture. They're the unaffiliated class here, which kind of will mend with the KIAC, and that Talladega team in Alabama is 8-4 right now, so very impressive non-conference resume they have on their hands. So Point Park, they have to take the rest of these games very seriously, because once they get to that stage where the unaffiliated class come together, they're going to have to face that Talladega team, and you don't know what can happen, based on what's happened so far on their non-conference schedule.
Especially come tournament time, and that really got Point Park last year. That Talladega team was the 6th member of the KIAC men's soccer bracket. They were missing one. We're really familiar with that whole scenario from last year's AMC. So they will combine, make 6 so that they can get an automatic bid in the KIAC. Back on the women's side of things, Matt, in this women's soccer team, they just keep rolling. They were up in Salem International as well for their game, and you take a look at the score of that one. Another big win for the Pioneers, 6-0. Point Park blanks Salem International. Stammer with a pair. James with a goal as well, and you go up and down the lineup. I mean, everybody's producing points. The Pioneers are 7-2 overall. They're 3-0 in the conference, and just a completely different team from last year.
Yeah, a very unselfish team this year as well. You look at the score sheets; it's very spread out for the scoring categories. You see Christina Stammer had 2 goals, but a lot of underclassmen get on the score sheet as well. And as you pointed out, Point Park outshot Salem International 32-1. That defense is playing very good right now, and that's what you need. You need a very strong defense to continue this throughout the season. That back four is really doing a good job for Maggie's team right now.
And you got to worry about your goaltender falling asleep at that time. If they're snoozing with only 1 shot on goal in the first half, there's nothing to do there. Let's take a look at the standings here for the women's side of things in the KIAC soccer bracket here. And a familiar face up at top there. When you take a look here in Carlow University, a former AMC foe for Point Park. They joined them in the KIAC. They're 3-0 also, Point Park 3-0. And really the reason you see that tiebreak, it goes to Carlow without any losses, just that lone tie out of conference there. Cincinnati Christian falls behind them, Asbury, Midway, Brescia, and Berea. So there's your 7 members of the women's soccer team. And Matt, Carlo, we know Carlo fairly well. Point Park knows Carlo, and they're going to see him later on this month.
Yeah, I don't think Point Park can take Carlo lightly this year. Carlo is a very good team. As you saw, they don't have any losses on this season, but I think Point Park and Carlo match up very evenly right now. As we saw last year, it was a very tight contest between the two teams. But, with this new offense that Maggie Kuhn is implementing into the system, it's going to be really it's going to be surprising to see if the Carlo defense can sustain that offense, and we'll see which PA team can be at the top of the KIAC this year.
And they're going to play on October 24th, a Wednesday. It's an away game, but it's kind of a home game for Point Park. They'll be playing out in Cheswick at Founders Field, the old home of the Pioneers. Also, some other conference matchups. Point Park women's soccer taking on Asbury on the 19th, and then Cincinnati Christian on the 20th. All those at home. They have 5 games at home in a week. Which is really tough to do.
That's going to be a really tough stretch for the Pioneers, but something they got to focus on is the out of conference as well. They're doing very well in the KIAC, but when you get back in the conference play, that's going to become a very big focal point for this team, because you want to do well when you get into the national tournament stage. So you got to take those non-conference games seriously. Seton Hill, that's going to be a very important game for the Pioneers to test their out of conference skills.
And we'll see Point Park doing a good job thus far with his 7-2 record. That'll do it for soccer. Matt, thank you as always for joining us here. Great analysis of the soccer teams, and we'll be back. Take a